Listen, Misty, it's okay if you're a total chicken. Brock and I are brave enough to handle things here. Hello? All right, if anybody's there, you can come on out. And if you're a ghost or a monster, you can stay where you are and we won't bother you. Or, better yet, why don't we listen to the podcast?
Hey, I'm Veronica Taylor.
And I'm Rena Taylor.
And this is The Trainer's Guide.
Today's episode,
Sparks fly for Magnemite!
Hello, we're back.
We are back. We have had such a crazy time traveling around.
I know.
We've been in Cape Town.
Yeah, and then we flew to San Antonio, and now we're back in LA. And it's kind of been really overwhelming.
I would say yes. I think things got the better of us and our workload kind of fell on us.
Yeah.
So
I think
now,
also once, when you're traveling and we're working on the weekends and then doing our own thing during the week. And I find I lose track of the days.
That's true. And also it's been pretty exciting. We've met so many wonderful people. When we were in San Antonio, we had a huge reunion and there was it was nonstop.
Yeah.
So now we've stopped for a minute. We're catching up. Thank you for bearing with. Hopefully we can stay on track now. We have a lot of exciting travel coming up and fun shows and all kinds of things. So stay tuned.
Definitely. So anyway, let's
get
hop into
on
it.
with episode 29. I cannot believe 29. I can't believe we're here. Thank you all for sticking with us
I
for
know.
all of this.
We're in the home stretch.
We've arrived in Gringey City.
I know. There are a lot of factories and no people, is what we're told.
And a lot of pollution. I mean, I think this is a really interesting episode because it's so real life.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Brock and Misty, this city, they started building factories and kind of got obsessed with building factories. And so they just kept building them. And then it became inhabitable for the humans to live there.
That's right.
So people left because the pollution became too much.
Yeah, and we have found out that we meet Grimer in this. And we found out that the Grimer
are born from sludge.
Yes, I was going to say come from, but born from is so much better. They're born from sludge and smell like sludge.
Yeah, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know, but I find the whole thing, you know how when you don't, let's say, speaking for a friend, when you don't vacuum all the time and you have kind of dust bunnies, well, Grimer is kind of the dust bunny of the Pokemon world.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of them.
That's true. Yeah, it's gross, but
Are we going to get into
lovable.
can I also just say, just to start us out, that I think that Grimer inspired Paddington 2, the outfits that they wear in the jail. Because they have all the stripes on
those
them.
are pink.
I know. Grimer are purple, but still pink, but stripy.
That's true. I guess that could be it. Yeah.
It's really one of my favorite movies ever.
I know. I mean, I guess because of the jail, it's stripy. Grimer's kind of stripy. It's a prison of sorts. And then, but in Paddington 2, Paddington's, I think it's his hat. His hat is red, right? His hat gets put in the laundry with the other gray striped suits. And then that's why they all turn pink, is because the red, you never mix colors with whites.
Well, don't put anything red in. That's for sure. Well, okay, so I'm just saying.
But I like your idea.
Thank you.
I like that thought process.
Anytime,
I had no idea where you were going with
whenever
that.
I can mention Paddington 2, I try to get that in.
Well, that is true. And I think, once this is finished, once we've gotten through all 8 seasons of Pokemon, I think we should watch Paddington 2 and then 1.
Okay, that's a deal.
And we'll stream it somewhere.
But first we'll watch the first Pokemon movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then
once we're done with this whole thing.
Okay, it's a deal.
We just watch shows that start with P. Pokemon, Paddington.
Peliputties. Is that... Okay, anyway, so we're in Gringey City.
And Psych. We could watch Psych. That starts with the P.
That's a good point.
Ooh. Anyway, we're in Gringey City and
Pikachu is kind of shorting out.
Yeah, Pikachu all of a sudden basically falls and is ill. And so they run to the Pokemon Center.
The gloves have come back out, the pink gloves.
Yeah.
That Ash is wearing.
Pikachu's just electrocuting at random.
Mhm.
And they run to the Pokemon Center, and there is a Nurse Joy working there, which I find interesting for this deserted town. And there still are some people, but like 3 people living, actually, no, 4 people living in this town.
Right.
Nurse Joy, Officer Jenny.
That's it.
And then the 2 factory workers.
Who are in the electrical plant.
So I find it interesting that there's a lot of Pokemon in this center when there doesn't seem to be a lot of people around in this town.
Well, it leads you to think that perhaps they were abandoned because they were so ill
well,
and
they're all
depleted.
In the ICU, so who knows?
Yeah, I know, in their little incubator.
But we get to the Pokemon Center, and Nurse Joy is like really mellow.
Exhausted, which I can relate
super
to.
Relaxed.
But often people, when they're around too much EMFs, you do get a bit exhausted. There's no specific reason for her exhaustion.
It doesn't explain if that is just her personality or if she is affected by her surroundings.
Yes.
Because I think she might just be like this. Because she's
right.
really relaxed and like laid back to the point where she doesn't have no drive and no like impetus to jump to things. So they get there and she's like, oh, yeah, yawn. She just woke up and she's like, oh, Pikachu has a cold. And she's like not offering to help. She's just kind of pointing out the obvious, but she's not being like, oh, let me help you with this or what can I do? And that we get a great line from Ash, which is,
excuse me, miss, are you the oddball in your family?
And she's like, no, everyone else in my family are odd.
Right.
And they're like, oh, okay.
So
anyway.
She agrees to take in Pikachu, who is shorting out with little, lightning bolts coming out of its cheeks. And it has a red line across its nose,
it's
which
blushing.
We all know when you have a cold, your nose and sinuses are a bit inflamed. And this is shown by Pikachu's red stripe for this episode.
Yeah. And then we also at the same time we see Team Rocket. And so they are watching our trainers from a distance. And it turns out that they're like in the sewer or something. And Meowth has this idea to get Jessie and James to swim through the sewer water to get to the Pokemon Center to capture Pikachu. And so they have to put these suits on and they're swimming under the water and it stinks.
Yes, it all really stinks. This is a great episode because, they're all talking like this for most of the time.
Right, because they have to cover their noses.
And yet Pikachu with the cold does not. Sounds exactly the same, but just weary.
Yeah, Pikachu doesn't seem to
have a
be
cold.
Affected by the scent.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So the great thing is Meowth has these amazing underwater outfits with helmets and everything for Team Rocket to go ahead and swim, but they are powered by the electricity.
And then the electricity goes out.
And Meowth freaks out.
Right.
Turning its back to us to say, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Sweat coming
Amazing.
Down.
Yes. And
because
somehow,
because the oxygen gets cut off in Team Rocket's suits. So that's a big stressor. And then the power gets cut off in the Pokemon Center. So all the Pokemon are in the ICU are
in
struggling.
Peril. Right.
And the reason why the power gets shut off is because these Grimer form from the sewer ocean water and they go and they block this grate that gets the water to come in to power the generators, and it's really convoluted.
It's a hydro-powered electrical plant, which is pretty interesting with the fact that there's so much pollution everywhere. This is something that should be helping. Maybe all the other factories are putting out so many particles into the air and, all of those pollutants, but this one should be better. But apparently it's not.
I don't think it matters. The water is just polluted, but it's being powered by water. But
that's what I mean. There should be fewer particles in the air even from it. But the turbine cannot pump and everything stops.
Everything stops. And so Ash and everybody are like, Nurse Joy, what are you going to do? And she's like, good
luck.
So they run to the power plant and they're trying to help. And all of a sudden Pikachu shows up and Pikachu's followed them from the Pokemon Center because it's afraid of being abandoned.
Now, that's an interesting thing that, we pick out the tiniest things, but apparently Pikachu is afraid to stay without Ash, thinking that it will be abandoned.
Which I think is so weird because that would never happen.
You wouldn't think so, but look what happened with Primeape.
I know.
That's perhaps
true.
that was good. What about Butterfree? They're not
They
abandoned.
have been leaving a lot of Pokemon
That's
around.
Right. They get left behind. So I guess
That's true.
Pikachu is better off following them.
Yeah, I guess.
And then
also, it's feverish. So sometimes when you have a fever,
You don't know
hallucinate.
what you're doing.
Yeah,
That's it.
So that might be it too.
Well, the Magnemite comes out, and nobody knows what that is. And it is an odd-looking Pokemon with these magnets and screws on it and a big eye.
What I think is interesting is like, you look at some of the newer Pokemon that are coming out now, and one's like a trash can, and you're like, oh my gosh, the Pokemon, in season 1 were so much more creative and whatever. But this is just 2 magnets put together with screws.
And an eyeball.
Yeah,
you're right.
This Pokemon, there are actual screws that you can see.
And how does it eat?
It's so weird.
Yeah, but it loves Pikachu.
It's really attracted
and it's
to Pikachu.
very attracted to it magnetically. But they go into a whole thing about how it couldn't be attracted because it's an inanimate
it's not
object.
An animal.
Right. And what is romance and all of that.
It's really weird.
It's very deep.
Yeah, deep in a strange, seemingly unnecessary way.
Yes.
But anyway, so Magnemite, we see Magnemite, and, everyone's kind of freaking out, and Magnemite disappears because Ash says, get away from Pikachu. Pikachu doesn't want you to be following him. But the greatest thing is Ash goes, Magnemite is like a streaker.
Oh my gosh. I guess Pikachu has a streaker. And Brock is like, I think you mean stalker.
Right. So funny.
Very funny.
Hilarious. Anyway, so then Magnemite disappears, and then all these Grimer come. And
they're attacking.
Well,
in a way.
They don't attack right away. They just come in through this grate into the power plant.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's, overwhelmed by the stench. And I guess that is what causes them to get angry. Because it's a little confusing.
Interesting.
Why they are so kind of angry all of a sudden. But anyway, so Misty and Ash are basically talking about how much they stink. And then this giant Grimer comes, but it's a Muck, which is an evolved form of Grimer.
Right.
So a Muck comes and then is basically like leading this charge. So it's pointing, going, ah, and then, and then they all start attacking or chasing them. It's really confusing.
And they kind of rally the Magnemite and the Magneton.
Well, so they're in the power plant, and then the control guys they go into the control room, and they're trying to keep the door shut because all the Grimer are coming in, and then they go, your Pokemon trainers, use your Pokemon to fight these Grimer. And all of them are like, okay, Pikachu, you're our only hope, which is
Pikachu's
confusing.
not really working out right now, but luckily it has a stalker.
Yeah. So it electrocutes, and then all these Magnemite and Magneton,
right,
the evolved forms, they come from who knows where, and then start, electrocuting the Grimer.
The Grimer, right, and chase them out, essentially. So there's a lot that happens, but when you are summarizing, not a lot happens in this episode.
And it's like, where did they all come from? That's what I want to know.
We're left with a lot of questions.
Because if they have the Magnemite and Magneton in this power plant, why can't they come and help with like reserve energy or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do they work there?
I don't know. We only have 2 people working there. So those 2 guys feature in this of the 4 people. So we see them. They don't know how to handle it. But our fearless Pokemon trainers get it under control. And then Ash catches
the Muck, which is also confusing because they go, there's one Muck left and it's child.
Right.
But there's only one there.
Yes. So that's something that we found, but we're just going to ignore that now.
Yeah.
And I guess so which one did Ash catch, the parent or the child? We don't know. Because we only saw one.
We only saw one, and it looked pretty big, so I'm not really sure.
Let's say it was the parent.
And can an evolved Muck is evolved? So isn't that kind of like an adult?
Yes.
So can there be a child Muck? Because isn't the child kind of like Grimer?
Again, I'm not sure. And maybe they're invisible. That's why we don't see them. That they get more covered. What we were trying to figure out, if they come from sludge, if they then are put into non-polluted water, clean water, does the smell start to go away? Or do they dissolve?
Because ash catches the muck, and then the scent from the muck comes out of the Pokeball.
Right. So
he has to send it back to Professor Oak because he can't carry it around because it stinks. But if muck is living with Professor Oak in a clean environment, will the scent go away? Because
I feel like, I don't know, later on or in my dim memory, the muck is always coming out and kind of attacking, like hugging Professor Oak. And I don't remember him talking about the smell so much.
Yeah,
so
I don't know either.
I'm not sure, but Professor Oak, just to jump ahead, is so funny at the end, talking about, look at this, and then it's the muck.
Oh, muck, yuck.
Yes, hilarious.
So good.
So meanwhile,
so
Team Rocket.
The problem is solved, and then we still have Team Rocket, and they come in at the end on this giant Gyarados boat.
Yes, that they've fabricated with their famous pedaling inside.
I think this boat, we've seen this boat before.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't
Sometimes
remember where,
it's like
but
past
I feel like we've seen it.
Yeah, past and future come together, and I don't know if we saw it or if we're going to see it or if this is it. But as you all know,
because I think they pedaled. I think that pedaling came in before.
It's a classic homemade machine thing to have them pedaling, and I just think that's fantastic.
It's really good. And they decide because we were missing the point, because Pikachu
is magnetic
because it didn't actually have a cold. It's just that when Pikachu gets I thought I wrote it down, but I think from what it was, it's like Pikachu gets
when it has too much power,
it has too much electricity, it becomes magnetized. And that's why the Magnemite was attracted to it. But then it, got rid of the excess electricity, and so it's back to normal. And then the Magnemite didn't care about it anymore.
Right.
And then Team Rocket decided, because Pikachu is magnetized, we'll use a giant magnet to get it. But they only attract Magnemite and Magneton because Pikachu is not magnetized anymore.
Right. So as soon as that magneticness was gone, then the Magnemite no longer liked Pikachu.
Right.
But Team Rocket is slow to this news, and
because they've been in the sewer.
Yes, and they set up this whole thing to magnetically capture Pikachu.
Yeah.
But when they turn on their magnet, the only thing they attract are Magnemite, and a ton of them.
Yes.
And so many that they sink the Gyarados boat.
Yeah.
And that's the end.
That's it.
So again, it's a little kooky and quick and
anticlimactic.
Yes.
In a sense.
But cool looking.
And it's, everything gets wrapped up, but
very quickly.
Faster than you think.
Yeah, because they do go on and on, as we are, about electricity and magnets. And I looked up
how many times have we said magnetized in this episode?
Oh, not as many as they did in the actual episode.
I know, but I feel like a lot.
Here's an interesting thing. Electricity and magnetism are they do go together. That's what the EMF is, the electric magnetic field.
Oh, yeah.
And you hear about that all the time with cell phones and TV and computers and all of that. But just a tiny thing, the electric field is produced by voltage. And the voltage is the pressure used to push the electrons through the wire, the electric wire, much like water being pushed through a pipe. And we have that in this episode with the water coming in and running the turbine and all of that. So that's the electric field. But the magnetic field results from the flow of current through the wires or electrical devices. And its magnetic strength increases as the current increases. So those two things do go together. Electricity is measured in volts, and magnetic fields are measured in microteslas. Interesting, in case you forgot that from school. So anyway, those things do go together, and we have that together in this episode, although it doesn't really, it equates to real life, but not exactly. So this episode should get you thinking about EMFs and should get you thinking about how electricity and magneticness work together.
Yeah.
Also, I think a big part of this episode is pollution.
Totally. Well, even that at the end of the episode, when Ash and Misty and Brock are leaving, they basically tell Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny, like, hey, you got to clean up your city. And if you clean it up, then people will come. But they go, the ocean, well, Misty being a water gal, she's like, the Grimer came because the water was so polluted. And so you have to clean that up because, otherwise it'll keep happening. So, it's a good reminder of if you have to make your place more habitable and then people will come back.
That's right. We have in the United States the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency. And when I was looking into this, we have the Clean Water Act, but so many of the standards have not been updated since 1984. I think the last for pesticide chemical plants, 1998.
Wow.
That's
crazy.
All of this pollution, fertilizer, all of these things that can run off into the water or be pumped out of factories, all of that, the controls on that have not been updated.
And things have changed so much in terms of like materials being used and how much is being produced and, the way things are being processed that you would think that, that those things would be more up to date because it's constantly changing.
Because we need water to drink. We need water for plants. You're using water all the time to grow the food you're eating. There is the sector for all of these pollutants. There's oil refineries, plastics and chemical manufacturing, plastics molding, chemical fertilizer, metal smelting. I don't know how often you guys think about that. Pesticide manufacturing and inorganic materials. All of that is flowing into our waterways. So these are things that you've got to speak up and talk about. How are these things being regulated where you live, in whatever country you live? Right. And also, I get into the nitty-gritty of if I'm washing my hair, let's say, with a shampoo that has a number of chemicals in it, all those chemicals are flowing down the drain through the sewer and out into the ocean or wherever they're all being dumped. Yeah. So how are you contributing to your own water waste, to your own water pollution?
Yeah.
When you throw things away, are you recycling? When you throw out old medicine, are you bringing it back to the drugstore so that they can dispose of it correctly, or are you flushing it down the toilet? Hopefully not. You've got to think about all these things. It's just like all of us can do our little parts along the way, but you've always got to be thinking about it. Or else you're going to be living in Gringey City.
Can you imagine, like, all of a sudden the fish get really skinny because people are flushing the Ozempic down the drain?
Oh my gosh. That's a terrible thing.
They're really anxious.
Oh my gosh.
Because they're taking all this medication.
But you know what? It is kind of a joke, but that is a problem.
Yeah, it's true.
All of that stuff factors in. So this episode, although there was, in a sense, not a lot to it, it really made me start thinking about what we're doing to our environment.
Yeah.
And this is in the nitty-gritty of the pollutants going out of the smokestacks or whatever we call them from the factory, what's being dumped in the water, what we're doing. All of those things, all of our actions matter.
Yeah, and I think also, even just the city itself having gotten to this point basically because of greed.
That's it.
And also not even greed, but just this weird obsession with building factories. Like, they just say they liked it, and so they kept doing it. And it's that thing of, we all have to kind of be aware of that within our own lives and also within, the greater context of where we're living and the world as a whole. And I think you just have to, it's a good reminder to not let things like that kind of take over and control you.
Well, also city planning. That's where it goes. That's another place where your voice can be heard, and it really matters of what what are the old buildings that are being torn down and what is being put up? And can those old buildings be reused for something that has a better purpose?
Yeah, or putting in a park, having green space.
Planting
That's
trees,
so important. I think there are a lot of things that we all kind of know about, but it's always a good reminder. And this episode was definitely a good reminder of like, oh yeah, I should look into that, or I should be more active in my community.
Yeah, community organizations. There's also a lot at your library that can tell you about what's happening in your community.
And even that in some cities, the funding is getting taken away from the libraries. So even that is something important to be aware of even. And then you can decide how you want to help and how you can help.
Well, isn't that, again, it comes down to voting. How can your voice be heard? And if you're not old enough to vote, how can you help your parents or guardians or friends who are of voting age? How can you talk to them so that you can all be speaking up for what you feel is right and what can make things better where you live?
Yeah. Or even, beyond the voting booth, how can you, help with fundraising?
That's
or
it.
How can you help with awareness to help your communities, every day of the year?
Yeah,
There's so many different things you can do.
And designing posters that you can hang up about taking care of your environment, your community.
Definitely.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
We should do that actually here.
Poster
let's get to
making.
work on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was a great episode to learn about working together, obviously, and then taking care of your environment and what's really out there and the little things that we can all do to make a difference.
I know, definitely.
I think this is a good time for the Poke Wrap Up,
where we hear from you, the Pokemon community.
We asked you to send in your favorite Pokemon memories, stories, and inspirations. And this week, we just wanted to mention our dear friend, Rachel Lillis, who you all know as Misty, Jessie, Jigglypuff, so many other characters and Pokemon. She is having a health crisis, and many of you may have seen something about this on social media this week. Her sister has put out a GoFundMe that can help with her medical bills and her care that she's receiving and hoping to receive better care. So if you are able to contribute, you can find out about the GoFundMe from our Trainer's Guide social media and from mine and Rena's social media. There's a lot of people who have been pitching in and spreading the word, and we hope that you can join us in supporting Rachel in this great time of need. She has been, an incredible friend, and she has meant so much to all of us. And I would say really she has made such an impact through her work in so many different cartoons and anime and, I don't know, just being a person at conventions and all around. So if you can pitch in, please do, whether it's just spreading the word or whether you can chip in a little for her care fund. That would be terrific. So look for that on our social media. And in the meantime, we do want to hear from all of you.
You can email us a short recording or write to us at trainersguidepod@gmail.com.
And try to keep it short. We hate to have to edit, so maybe 30 seconds or so.
Oh, and please include your first name and where you're from.
Well, that about wraps up today's episode of The Trainer's Guide. And, as they say, to be continued. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey that is The Trainer's Guide.
As you know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you're listening now.
And if you subscribe, comment, and rate the podcast, it helps others find the show and keeps us on the air.
Thank you so much in advance for your generosity and all of your amazing support.
Trainer's Guide is a production of Boom Integrated.
We are co-executive producing this along with
the amazing Adrian Glover
and the incomparable Robin Lai. I'm your host, Veronica Taylor.
And I'm your host, Rena Taylor.
And this has been The Trainer's Guide. We'll see you out there on the road.